Hey there, Grumpy Old Fart here. I'm doing an advanced Dungeons and Dragons advice video on backstories. Now, there's this is advice for Dungeons and Dragons, but it can apply to virtually any tabletop role playing game. But I kind of prefer to do it this way with Dungeons and Dragons because it makes a difference. Let me get on with this. Before I get into this, though, if you enjoy my content, it would really help me out if you could hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and share my content on all of your platforms. And post a comment or two. Remember, I welcome your comments, even if you disagree with me. If you enjoy a good book, check out my author page on Amazon.com. My pen name is H.L. Anderson. You can find all of my books there, including the Devo Poland Chronicles. This is the first two books there. I'm working on the third now. The first one is Vanguard 1. The second one is Task Force Terminus. You can see them in the picture right there. It's a study of humanity from an alien perspective. It's got a great backstory. I think it does. And, of course, I'm biased. I wrote it, so you got to take that with a grain of salt. But everybody who's read them said they're really, really good. A little bit of humor thrown in with some seriousness. And it's essentially an alien pacifist learning to fight from the best fighters in the galaxy, the humans. All right, let's get on with this here. Backstories. Part of the fun of playing in tabletop role-playing games is making up the character that you will play in the game. A character, if you don't know the character, is the playing piece in the game. It's like in Monopoly, you have the wheelbarrow or the shoe or the car. In tabletop role-playing games, this is your wheelbarrow, shoe, or car. It's your character. I've been playing tabletop role-playing games since 1976. Back then, nobody really delved much into the player character's backstory. We had a character and we ran it. That was pretty much it. These days, players go on and on about their character's backstory. Some of them are so obsessed with it that they forego the storyline to stay within that backstory. I ran a game a few years ago and one player insisted that his player character was a prince. He refused to leave the castle. My adventure was in a border region, and he never even made it there. He just stayed in the castle. That player was bored, and I had to create a small little side thing within the castle so that he would have something to do. Yeah, you have players like that from time to time. Backstories are important. I'm not saying that they're not. But here are a few guidelines that I use to allow the players to create backstories which will fit into the game. First off, minimalism. Less is more. Create your backstory as a player. Create your backstory through what your character does in the game. Initially, just do enough to get the player character into the game. That's all you need for now. Before any backstory is created, figure out the socio-economic background of the player character. There's tables for that in the Dungeon Master's Guide that work really well. I've created my own, but that's because my world is unique. Otherwise, if you don't figure this out beforehand, the socioeconomic background of the player character beforehand, otherwise you're going to have a party full of heroes, princes, princesses, and orphans or victims. People like playing victims these days. I don't know why that is. There will be no regular guys or bored veterans and no peasants desperate for a better life. One of the best characters I ever had was a peasant who had no weapons training. He was great at shoeing horses, and he could use a hammer. I think that's what he took with him, as I recall, because he was a blacksmith. But he wasn't militarily trained. He just knew how to use a hammer well. So when they went into combat, he had to learn all that. But he was in it for the money, pure and simple. He wasn't making enough money as a blacksmith to support his family, and the king kept taxing him. So he went out adventuring to try to find a little extra money. To me, that's an interesting backstory. But that, how you do it is up to you. But again, figure out the socioeconomic thing beforehand. That way you don't have, not everybody's rich, Make sure that the backstory can be woven into the tapestry of your adventure campaign as the Dungeon Master. Minimalism with the backstories is the Dungeon Master's friend. The backstory is a balancing act. There has to be enough meat on the bone to establish basically who the character is, but not so much backstory that the player cannot evolve or change. There has to be wiggle room. The player character has to be able to adjust. No first level character should start out as a badass hero. That's some 5th edition shit right there. This is an advanced Dungeons and Dragons video. 5th edition characters start out as established badass heroes, borderline deities. Yeah. The son or daughter of a hero can work, but they themselves must work up to that hero status. The whole point of the game is to build a character. If you already have the badass character with all the power and all the magical ability and everything, what's the point in playing? You know? Why adventure if you can earn money otherwise? Make sure the player rolls on the secondary skills chart. Make sure, I'm going to say that again, make sure the player rolls on the secondary skills chart. This gives their player character the opportunity to be able to get jobs between adventures if necessary. Do this before the backstory is created, because then they can work that in. You know, they can be a rich guy who still knows how to be a blacksmith. They can be a rich guy who runs farms, because farming makes money in this. I mean, everybody has to have food, and it's not like modern times where the farmers are being taxed into oblivion. The king knows the people need food. Only an idiot taxes farmers to death. Okay, I'm just saying. A rich person can be into agriculture. He can be into livestock. He can know how to shoe a horse or skin a buck. You know, everybody's got to eat. It's just the way it is. A quick final note. I had a player in a game years and years ago. This guy, his name was Eddie. The group had started out at 1st level, worked their way up to 5th level, and everything was fine. We were having fun. The group had been transported to a different place. I want to say through a portal, as I recall, to a lake with a barren land all around it. And they were trying to figure out where they were. Suddenly, Eddie informed me that his character, and I was the dungeon master, Eddie suddenly informed me that his character was a prince, and therefore he didn't deserve to be there. He had better. He should have better options because his character was a prince. Now, this was the first time I'd heard of it, so of course I said no. And he tried and tried to convince me, and I kept saying no. This is the first time I've heard of this, and I'm the dungeon master. If you had wanted your character to be a prince, we should have worked that into the story earlier. And he got mad. He tried to have his player character, commit suicide. And it worked. It escalated. It got bigger and bigger and became this whole thing. Do yourself a favor as the dungeon master. Make sure the player gives you some kind of backstory. Okay? Again, minimalistic. Follow the guidelines that I laid out. I recommend you follow those guidelines. But he's got to give you some kind of a backstory. Building the character in-game is best, but they have to have a starting point so nobody is surprised later. Especially the dungeon master. Yeah, if you're surprised about something that happens in your game, yeah, there's something wrong. I'm just saying. Again, I'm not trying to tell people how to play the game or how to run their games. My goal here is to help the less experienced dungeon masters or the people who are new to the game have more fun. And that's the whole point of these games, to have fun. If you ain't having fun, you're doing the wrong thing. Or you're doing it wrong. Anyway, I hope this finds everybody well. You folks have a good one. God bless one and all.